Today's heartbroken episode of the Bill Simmons Podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network, brought to you by SeatGeek, our presenting sponsor. Buy and sell tickets in 2 taps on your phone. Everything fully guaranteed. Basketball fans, we have an offer for you. $30 off your first SeatGeek purchase on NBA tickets. All you have to do is use promo code NBA Palooza, NBA Palooza. It expires on November 1st. Download the SeatGeek app or go right to SeatGeek.com. We're also brought to you by Sonos. Their Play-Base adds dynamic, pulse-pounding sound to whatever's playing in your TV. It streams music, practically disappears underneath your TV. For the first time, Sonos offering listeners of this podcast 10% off one order of $2,500 or less for any product on Sonos.com. That is an awesome offer. Available limited time only. Can't be combined with other discounts or promotions. Use promo code BillSimmons10, so Bill Simmons 10 at Sonos.com to receive this exclusive offer. We are brought to you by TheRinger.com. That's where my football column goes every Friday. That is where we had NBA Preview Palooza for 2 straight days. We put up a ton of video. The Claytheism documentary, which I don't know, it might win a short film Oscar. We're gonna submit it. We'll see what happens. Whole bunch of great stuff. The team killed it. Jason Gallagher, Chris Ryan, all of our video dudes. Shea Serrano, Kevin O'Connor, Jonathan Sharks was in town. All of our basketball peeps. Pretty awesome. And by the way, if you're in LA, if you hear this in the next couple hours, tonight at Largo, we are going to be breaking down Face Off, a live rewatchables podcast with me, Shea, Jason, Concepcion, and Chris Ryan. Supposedly, celebrity guest Zach Lowe is just going to be in the crowd. We might have to pull him up for a Q&A after. So anyway, Largo. I don't know if tickets are available anymore, but maybe there's some scalper out there. Who knows? Hey, we have Jeff Bridges coming up. We taped it last week. It runs for a little bit under an hour. It was awesome to have him. He is a resource. We played the IMDb game with him. So that's coming up later. But we got to talk opening night. It was one of the most traumatic opening nights. I think it was the most traumatic opening night. Well, Pearl Jam will cheer me up for 1 second. Then we're going to talk about that, and then we'll get to Jeff Bridges right after this. All right, Tate Frazier's here. We might call my dad. I don't know if he's home. I think my dad went into a coma last night, right around the time Gordon Hayward's ankle was facing the wrong way. That was awful. Here's my story for yesterday. My son had a flag football game. I love watching my son play flag football. Taped the game, thought I would go to the game, get back, skip through all the commercials. I swear this happened. Game ends. We're in Brentwood. Get in the car. It's 10-9 on on Sirius. It says what the score is.
Yeah.
And they're in commercial. We get in the car. We're talking about the game. And I'm like half paying attention. And then I'm like, wait. And the announcer's going, oh, no. Oh, God. Oh, no. And it was Gordon Hayward. I not only did I not get to see him play a healthy minute on the Celtics, I didn't even get to enjoy hearing a healthy minute. In 5 minutes, it was gone. And it doesn't look like he's coming back this season. They're going to find out after the surgery, but he definitely fractured his ankle. He might have fractured his tibia too. They were saying it was a clean break.
That's what they said after. When I think Ledlow said that, the second time she came back with the report, because fractured ankle was one thing, but then the tibia,
Once the tibia gets involved. Fractured ankle, he could have come back. I was doing all the research last night when I got home. It seemed like 4 to 5 months, like he maybe could have been back for the playoffs, but then the tibia bone gets thrown in. But the bottom line is nobody knows. They're going to do the surgery, I think, today. Mm-hmm. And they won't know till they get in there and they see what the damage is and how they can repair it and stuff like that. It's just the only other parallel I have to this is Brady in 2008, 8 minutes into the season. And all of a sudden it was over. And you go into the season, you have all this optimism. mean, maybe some teams don't, but I think the Celtics did this year. You have all this optimism, and then it's like, oh yeah, game one, hey, new guy in the uniform, and you have all that, and then it's just gone like immediately, and it's one of the more bizarre experiences I think you can have as a sports fan. Not to mention, maybe the worst basketball injury I've ever seen in a game. I'm trying to think, like the Paul George thing was bad. Kevin Ware in Louisville.
Mm-hmm. I think the trauma of the moment too, because when it happened live, they showed Hayward and he was sitting down still, and you hadn't seen the other shot, so then they cut away to his foot, but it was confusing because he was just grimacing, and you're like, what's going on here?
Pull his hammy or something.
Yeah, because it was a lob.
Yeah.
And then when they cut to his foot, I mean, it was like the whole building went silent because I think they saw the same shot, and then Kevin Harlan was just like, oh no. Oh,
he broke his leg.
Yeah.
And then the Cavs bench jumped backwards, and
that was the first shot. They like ran to grab
almost
someone.
ran away. Yeah.
Oh, the whole crowd was silent.
I'm amazed. I'm always amazed when these guys go up for lobs and they're going up and there's a sea of bodies around. I always thought it doesn't make sense why they don't land on somebody's foot more often. Mm-hmm. Or why how LeBron, all the times he's ever jumped up, how one time he never landed forcefully on somebody's foot and like either twisted his ankle or broke it, something like that. This was like the all-time worst case scenario because you had the lob was a little bit behind him. You had LeBron coming over. You had Jay Crowder, who got beaten backdoor by the lob, and he's coming in. He's got LeBron coming at him, and he kind of threw his arm out, which I'd love to see another replay of that because I couldn't tell if he knocked Hayward off balance, like just to foul him, or whether he did it just because LeBron was coming, but he definitely knocked him off balance. Ball goes behind him, and he just lands. I've never seen anybody land like that, which is crazy because, I mean, I'm older than you, so I've seen more basketball than you, but both of us have watched a lot of basketball. I've just never seen that happen before. It was an all-time fluke.
Yeah, and his toe, like the tip of his shoe was straight down, and it stuck. Yeah. And then his body went this way, and his body foot just flipped stayed, and it just, I mean, it made me sick to my stomach watching it.
Obviously killed the season for the Celtics. But I mean, my mind's going to, is he going to be the same? Mm-hmm. When you have that kind of injuries in his late 20s. Paul George, I don't feel like was the same for 2 years.
Yeah, he was like 24 to 26.
Now, he broke his leg. I think it was higher. Mm-hmm. If it's just a fractured ankle and it fractured off the tibia, I know nothing other than all the armchair Googling I did last night. It seems like that might be easier to heal than just breaking your leg in half. But, man, I mean, you think about how Hayward played, like that backdoor lob they ran for him was something Utah did all the time. That was like one of his plays. He was like a shockingly athletic guy you'd think he's this kid from Indiana, white guy. He's just a shooter, but he's actually pretty athletic. Mm-hmm. And we'll see if it changes the way he plays. But for the Celtics, you watch the second half of that game, Tatum and Brown like really showed up in the second half. I was amazed the Celtics could even continue playing. Like they immediately they had the lead when Hayward got hurt. By halftime, they're down 16-18. Mm-hmm. And then second half, they kind of fought back, and you saw the talent they had in the floor and the way skinny Marcus Smart, Kyrie, Horford, mm-hmm. Tatum, Brown. And then you think like, you're watching them go toe to toe with Cleveland. Like, man, if they had Hayward, like this really could have been a conversation. How did you feel? You don't care about either team.
No, I just thought that whatever Brad Stevens said to that team at halftime, he should be commended for to be able to get them back in the game, because that was pretty much the response afterwards. Like, how did the Celtics play after this happens? Because even I said, I was like, Jason Tatum looks really out of sync to start this game, and everyone's like, well, he just had to deal with this traumatic injury from his mentor. What do you expect? But they flipped it 100% in the second half. They really did, and that was impressive to me that they were able to do that. And
Tatum seemed nervous to me in the first half.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
which understand it was LeBron TNT first game ever.
And his first shot, he gets just swatted by LeBron. That a shot that he gets off in college 100% of the time, like a little baby floater, and LeBron's like not up in here. It's the NBA. But I just thought Kyrie's reaction to Hayward, because he threw the lob, was so genuine. I felt horrible for him.
They're pretty close too, I think.
And he took it on himself, because he was like, I threw the lob behind him, was like how he reacted to it. And I don't know, if I was a Celtics fan, I would be more impressed that they all galvanized around each other and made it, because they could have just fallen apart completely.
Yeah.
So that falls on Steven's shoulder. So, and they could have won. Kyrie had a shot to tie the game.
Well, LeBron, the Derrick Rose 3 at the end of the third quarter, which will happen once a year because he sucks shooting threes and it was a bad shot. It was end of the quarter heave. It goes in. That hurt because the Celtics had a lot of momentum. But, the Cavs went on a 7-0 run at the end. LeBron had 2 of like the all-time great LeBron travels. The one with 8 minutes left when he changed his pivot foot. He took like 8 steps. That was on the internet. But then the other one when he drove down to the left, did the full hop step and then the full pirouette around. Like, he just doesn't get caught for anything anymore.
I don't understand how he gets away with that, and also how no one says anything on the broad. Like, of all people,
what footwork?
Yeah, for Reggie Miller who was going to make fun of everything that ever happens on a basketball court, for him not to say anything, it'd be like, that's a travel back in my day or something along those lines. It's just crazy to me.
Make one comment. LeBron, he's still so good.
Yeah.
He does this thing that he started doing in the last finals game last year, where it's this new bully ball move he has, where he just kind of, he dribbles down, he backs the guy down going forward, and then does this weird muscular spin move, and it's like unstoppable. I don't know where this came from.
Yeah,
the Celtics couldn't stop it.
It's like Shaq.
Yeah.
It's what he looks like.
Or
looks
like Hakeem
Shaq.
Olajuwon or something. I don't know where this move came from. And I don't know why people can't steal the ball from him as he's dribbling forward, or how they don't jump for the charge. But every time it works.
He pounds the hell out of the ball,
he pounds
too.
the ball and he just moves the people back. He must be so strong. We must have no idea how hard it is to
I felt
stop
bad
him.
for Jaylen Brown. He had 2 or 3 times where he's right there and he's like getting back down. I'm like, this is good defense by Jaylen. Great defense, Jaylen. And then it just, boom, get out of the way. It's a layup.
The guy who cost him the game in the last 2 minutes was Kyrie. Mm-hmm. And I'm giving him a pass for a variety of reasons. It was one freaking game. But also, I think he really was affected by the Hayward thing. But,
yes,
he drove on Derrick Rose at the end there and just got off a terrible shot. Derrick Rose is guarding him. Like, you could score on Derrick Rose. On the other end, Derrick Rose beat him a couple times. And then I thought he had a good look at the 3 at the end. I don't know why he didn't shoot it right away.
He hesitated. LeBron got in his head.
He did.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown had a good shot too. It was an encouraging game for the young guys. I do think the Celtics just have a lot more talent than they did last year. But this Hayward thing, they constructed this whole team around these Kyrie, Hayward, Jalen, Tatum, Smart, and obviously Horford from last year. But I just don't think they're a contender now. I think they could beat anyone in any game, but I just don't think they have enough people.
I think it's going to be a blessing in disguise for Tatum in a weird way, where he's going to have some onus on himself to be the guy to score. Like, he's going to have games sometimes where he has to have 25 points.
It's a baptism by fire.
Exactly. He has to.
There's a best case scenario in this where Hayward miraculously comes back in April, and these guys have gotten 5 months of reps without him. And I would say the odds are probably 2%, but that's where my head, I went to so many dark places last night. Like, the darkest I went to was, I was like, is this karma for the Isaiah, for what they did to Isaiah? Like, you start thinking about that stuff. Like, is this like the basketball karma gods going, you fucked over Isaiah, this is now what we're going to do to you? Obviously that's ridiculous. But you go to all these weird places, and then, you start mapping out the season, and you're like, man, we're not going to win the title. I didn't think this team was going to win the title. I know, but now they're definitely not. And then this guy that we're all excited to watch is gone. And there's just no experience like that. It's almost better off to go into the season with a shitty team versus the potential of a good team, and then all of a sudden it's gone. Not to mention, I just felt bad for the dude.
Oh, yeah.
I can't even imagine how much that hurt.
That was
It seemed like it hurt so much he couldn't even feel the pain. Like, he seemed fine as they were carrying him off. He's like, hey, thanks, guys. He must have, his whole leg must have just been completely numb, right?
Yeah, I think that when everyone ran away from him and he was on the ground, I think that he felt something, and then he saw it, and then he was in shock. And then as everyone else saw it, it just reverberated through the entire arena as everyone got a glimpse of what was going on. I don't know how he sat there without any. I mean, that dude is a tough son of a. He's a tough dude to sit there with his foot the other way and just be able to get up and get carried out, because I would have been screaming
it's
in
amazing
pain.
he didn't pass out.
I don't know how.
Especially if his leg broke too. Man, I I just don't think we'll ever see a worse basketball injury unless somebody lands on their head and gets paralyzed or something. That's got to be the worst lower body injury that can happen. Sean Livingston was really awful.
Sean was bad, yeah.
Baron Davis, when he was on the Knicks, he made a cut and his whole knee basically just exploded.
Ugh.
So we've seen knee stuff like this. Part of me wonders the high tops versus the low tops. He was wearing the low tops yesterday. Kobe started this low top revolution like 5 years ago. And I was thinking about, if he has high tops on, does that happen? Probably anyway, right? The way his toe landed, but maybe, I don't know. He had so much force going the other way on the foot. I don't know.
It just, I can't. It was like his shoe stuck to the ground. Like the tip of his shoe dragged on the ground, and then it just his weight went the other way, and it just was a freak act. I don't know. I don't think it would happen if you did that 10 times, that same play. I don't think that would have happened, and it just happened in the 1 in a million time, and it was terrible. I mean, after the game, they were talking to LeBron, and he's talking about his ankle. And he talked about his ankle for 3 minutes.
It was me, I, me. And then she was like, what about the resolve the Celtics showed? And he started talking about the Cavs. And it's like, what resolve did the Cavs have?
And then they finally asked him about Hayward, and he goes, first of all. I'm like, no, you've already talked for 6 minutes about yourself. It's not first of all. I mean, Gordon Hayward, I would hope, would be the first thing that's at your mind when someone's talking about an ankle injury.
Yeah.
But it was terrible.
It was a tough night.
Stevens was great afterwards, too.
People are asking if I was going to call my dad today. I don't think my dad's going to be able to talk for like a month and a half. He was so fired up for the season. It's like, and the Brady flashbacks were definitely there. It was very similar to, oh no, wait, is our season over? Like you think that, and then you feel bad for the guy, and man. Quickly, we should talk about the other game. My instincts all summer were that this Chris Paul, James Harden thing was a weird fit because they both needed the ball and because Chris Paul played at a certain pace and the Rockets played at another pace. And then everybody kind of gradually talked me into the Rockets. And, well, they're always going to have an awesome guy on the court. KOC thought they were going to win 60 games. Maybe they will. Offensively, this makes them more devastating. I wish I had stuck to my guns because just the eye test of watching that game, I know it's game 1. But the pace that he plays is 3 gears lower than everybody else on that team and how they're going to play to succeed. And I don't think it was an accident. The last few minutes, they took him out. And all of a sudden, the pace quickened. They just seemed like they were attacking more. They were better defensively. Is this an overreaction?
That's where Chris is not Chris anymore. It's on the defensive end. He was minus 23 at one point last night. He and Ariza both. He kind of neutralizes Ariza on the offensive end because he's sort of in the way. And like Trevor Ariza is like, I'm going to the corner and I'm shooting a 3 because James Harden's going to drive and kick it out to me or he's going to finish a layup. It was like Chris didn't know where to go in the court. He just took a lot of weird spaces.
He was like a couple of plays, he was like 35 feet away from the court. Not even a factor in the play because he didn't know where to go.
Yeah, when one time they had a rebound and Eric Gordon started the break and Chris sat back like, give me the ball, I'm going to run the offense. And Eric Gordon's like, no, like we run the we're running the primary break every time.
It was like watching. I remember when I used to play pickup with the college kids, and there were certain groups that they would just go, and either you ran with them or you shouldn't play with them.
Yeah, it's a different class.
I don't think Chris Paul has fully realized yet that he's not in the Clippers anymore. And it's like, if you're going to be in this team, go full tilt, even if it means you got to play 27 minutes instead of 37. Yeah. But Harden said something after about Chris Paul's knees already hurting. Or is it in that post game? It's like, well, Chris's knees bothering him. It's like, Chris's knees bothering him? It's game 1.
It felt like that was more of a, like, I'm trying to get ahead of this whole story where we're going to talk about what's wrong with Chris Paul because he was so bad last night. He did get Steph Curry in foul trouble, which is, his calling card against the Warriors. But PJ Tucker was the best addition they had to the team last night. He was tough, got a bunch of big rebounds, made some big free throws.
Gordon looked like he was in better shape, too.
Yeah, and he was like ready to play. He was like, I'm the 6th man of the year. Give me the ball. I'm ready to go. I don't know. I've never seen Chris look that out of seat.
This was coming for 2 years, though, because one of the myths of Chris at least the last 2 years, was how great defensively he was. He wasn't. He could, on a specific play or a specific 2-minute stretch, could do it, but he couldn't do it for 4 quarters. And the faster point guards in the league were you could see it when like John Wall came to town or Westbrook or whoever. All of them were like, I'm attacking. Chris can't keep up with me. That was their attitude. And now it's year 13. All the point guard history says that this is when you start tailing off a little, which is, I don't know whether the Clippers intentionally or unintentionally factored that in, but I think it's something Houston, I'm sure they thought about and they just didn't care. I think the big mistake Chris made was not locking down that 5-year deal, unless Houston already gave him a wink. But by the way, if Houston has to give him a 5-year deal starting next summer, if he's going to continue going a certain thing, because if he can't be a spot up point guard, if he can't find that second part of his career like Jason Kidd
get I'm shooting spot up 3-pointers, you kick it out to me, James Harden, you're
I'm
basically
gonna be
the
an
point
awesome
guard.
passer. I'm moving the ball around every once in a while, I'll slash. But like, if I'm you love Curry, you're rooting for Golden State last night.
I was rooting for Steph.
You were ecstatic every time Chris Paul was going 1-on-1 to settle for an 18-foot 2-pointer. That was the best outcome if you're the Warriors every time. And please keep doing that.
And they wanted to. They baited him into some of those.
Oh, yeah.
And they know him very well. That was the thing about Chris playing the Warriors. Like, he has this huge chip on his shoulder against that team because they basically stopped the Clippers from being able to win 2 titles.
Yeah.
And last night it was like Chris was like fighting his own personal demons, and the Rockets were trying to play a game. I don't know. It was strange to witness, really.
I'm trying not to overreact. It's one game. I just didn't.
And they won, which is crazy.
And they won. The positives are just having Chris on the team. It seemed like it pushed Harden to another level. I thought that was my favorite Harden game I think I've ever seen him play yesterday. He was going hard on both ends.
Yeah, he's like 100% like getting to the rack and finishing last night.
Looks like he's in awesome shape. He's never been more confident. He knows his weapons now. And when they had Tucker and Ariza and Gordon and who's playing center? Capella,
yeah.
Down the whole
who was also minus 27. I think they had Ryan Anderson in there too.
Yeah,
they were just
with those 3 wing guys that they had, whoever is the 5th guy, Harden really. PJ Tucker is just a good player.
He was a great addition.
That was a nice team for him. He had some hard fouls early that I liked.
He threw down Durant pretty hard, and everyone, tried to give him a flagrant. He was like, "Look, I'm just playing basketball," and I was like, "This is great. This is the PJ awesome. Tucker I want."
From a Warriors standpoint, it was a bizarre coaching performance by BS Report Hall of Famer Steve Kerr. I did not understand the lineups down the stretch. I did not understand. Durant was kind of floated through the game.
Yes.
It was one of these. It was like we just left the finals. Durant was the best offensive player in the league. I thought we all agreed. Like, you guys have this unstoppable high screen now with Curry and Durant. And then in that game, it was like they forgot he was there.
It was almost like a sign to say, we're saving our guy. Like all 4 of them being on the bench at one time, they had those shots where it was just the 4 of them, and it was Nick Young putting up 20 points on the court. It was like Nick Young, Pat McCall, this like young lineup of guys, and it's like, that is so strange now that they're just basically like, these are the guys that we're going to run out there, keep us in the game, and then we'll come in to close it, and they just didn't have enough to close it.
I can't believe that Durant and Curry one of them wouldn't be on the court in a TNT game at least.
In the season opener, yeah.
The Sean Livingston signing was the one thing they did that I didn't totally understand last summer. Kind of expensive. I thought that was one position that they could have patchworked their way out of. I never really loved the fit with him on that team. I think he had good moments.
But he's still a mid-range point guard.
He's a mid-range point guard, and he's fine. I just think like that if you're trying to put together this super team and you have to make a cut here or there, that might have been where I did it. I might have just tried to roll the dice with a couple minimum point guards or waited till February when you get the buyout guys. I didn't really understand the Livingston thing at all.
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, he had a strange game too. It seems like it felt like the Warriors didn't know. Like, they didn't look like they were in sync, and they knew what they wanted to do with their whole game plan last night, which is strange for a team that just won the finals and seemed to be so secure in who they were.
Well, then they're really relying on Draymond.
Yeah, and when he went down, that's when the game flipped. More
than ever. I thought they learned last year, just move Durant to the 5 and play it that way and go. But then, like, Looney was out there, and
yeah.
I thought it was a very strangely coached game. And I thought Houston stole it, and it probably doesn't mean anything. But I look at this Warriors team. Every time they lose, it's their fault. It really is, especially at home. They should never lose ever. I didn't like the energy they had. I mean, maybe the rings and the ceremony before, but like even when Durant hit the game winner, the reaction was weird. It seems like they need a little more intensity. Was my takeaway from that game. Take the season a little more personally.
Yeah, it felt like preseason almost with the way they handled it.
You're in TNT. You just got your rings. Go out, beat the Rockets.
Can we talk about that ceremony and how
everybody on the organization got one?
Except for James Michael McAdoo. Where was he?
And where was Ian Clark?
Yeah, I know. They didn't even get a mention.
Well, maybe they do it when they show up.
I know, but I just wanted. I think they should get a mention. But I thought it was crazy that Durant was the fourth guy.
Yeah, what was that? Before Zaza Pachulia.
Yeah, it was like they brought Durant out to like get it out of the way, and like Finals MVP Kevin Durant, as if he was one of the five guys that had a great fight. Like he was like Iguodala at that point, basically.
We were texting, and you made the point that I agreed with wholeheartedly, is that it does feel like this Warriors season, they're pushing the team toward Curry.
Yeah.
And this is like we just paid Steph all this money. Steph is our guy. KD was the Finals MVP last year. Thanks, KD. You brought us the title. This is kind of Steph's team. That was the vibe I got last night. I don't know if I'm overreacting or reading too much into it, or whether I was in an emotional spiral from the Hayward injury. But
they gave him center stage, and he actually
center stage and a half.
Yeah, and he got the microphone. I mean, when he was the last guy up, he kind of like ran to get right behind Clay, so it didn't feel that way because he was trying to definitely make it so he didn't say this. And then he gets the microphone, does the whole speech. But last year in April, it was Durant that was going to the new stadium site, giving the speech to everyone, and everyone's like, this is Kevin Durant's team now. And then he wins Finals MVP, and everyone's like, this is Durant's team now. And then he has this weird summer where, he's getting questioned. Everyone's trying to figure out what his identity is. And then it's like the Warriors have just pivoted back to like, okay, Steph, this is your team. We know it's your team. It's always been your team. You're the anchor. You're our leader. Hold us down. And it's been a weird shift in things. And it seems like Durant even, I don't know, It'll be interesting. I want to watch that play out.
KD and Steph together should have done the banner thing.
Yes.
I thought it was weird.
I did too.
I really did. I was like, whoa.
And he's like four guys.
Finals MVP.
He's like four people down the line, and he's not even in the shot. It's just, it changed so quickly. And I don't know if it is Durant being that way. Is he saying,
maybe he's being weird.
He's called himself the servant before, and he said that he's not the star in Oklahoma City. Russ was. And he's trying to do that. He said when they were in China, he said, Steph's the leader of the team, not me.
Well, the big winner last night was OKC, because if I'm OKC and I'm watching that game, I'm like, we can get that team.
Mm-hmm.
We can go full-fledged at them. We can play a certain pace, and we can be super intense, and we can attack them.
And we have no pressure on us.
Yeah.
No one expects us to beat these guys.
It's a why not us, nobody believes in us thing.
And the Rockets, I mean, if you watch that team and you're the Thunder, you have to say, wow, I'm necessarily not worried about them as much as I was heading into the season after seeing Chris like that. It's like if I'm Westbrook, it's like, okay, Chris Paul.
The Chris thing has moved way up the top of the ladder for me on most fascinating season subplots, because if he's going to play in third gear and they're all in fifth gear, I don't know how that works. And by the way, I felt that way, and I'm like, am I overthinking this? And then inside the NBA after, that was all they talked about.
Yep.
And I thought Reggie Miller and Marv just really, really missed that angle last night. First of all, Chris sitting on the bench in crunch time, I would have shown him on the bench. I thought he got hurt. I didn't know if he fouled out. I had to look up. He had 4 fouls. I would have shown him on the bench 40 times. Yeah. What are the producers doing?
I don't know.
Where's Chris Paul? Hey, there he is. He's wearing a sweat jacket.
They did the Weber thing too, where like Weber didn't want to talk about him. Like, Weber is like the perfect caping for everyone because he wants to cape for himself.
Yeah,
so it's like
C-Web's like, look, I know about disappearing in the last 3 minutes, Marv. Here's how it feels.
He also, the ref, so Chris Paul gets fouled, or says he gets fouled on the 3. The ref gets hurt, and Chris Paul, like after yelling at him, goes over and like tries to cheer him up, like, what's wrong, what's going on? The ref goes out of the game because he's hurt.
That was weird, right?
Yeah.
It looked like he
had like a rib injury,
like
pulled
or his rib cage or something.
And then freaking Chris Webber comes on and goes, you got 2 refs now. Now it's time to throw the cheap shots. They can't see everything. I'm like, God, you're such a dirty player, Chris Webber.
Also, that's not how he played. He was soft. Everybody used to do that to Chris Webber.
It's so ridiculous. Like Marv was like, "Okay, Chris, thanks for that point."
Oh man, Chris Webber's revisionist history of basketball is one of my favorite subplots.
He's telling his own story live on the air. It's great.
Yeah, it's the best. These guys that go into media though, they can really spin it.
Yeah, it's the Tracy McGrady. He got in the Hall of Fame for it. It's great.
All right, Tate. Gordon Hayward, there's no reason you're listening to this, but if on the 1 in a million chance you are.
We're thinking of you.
We're thinking of you. Everyone at the Ringer wishes you the best. Hope you can miraculously come back this year, but more importantly, hope you come back healthy. What a bummer. The Celtics team will keep chugging along. That's what Brad Stevens does.
Jason Tatum Rookie of the Year odds look really good right now.
So do the Kyrie scoring title odds. Toronto plus 400 in the Atlantic Division. Cleveland. I mean, Gonzalez said this in our Slack yesterday, John Gonzalez, new Ringer hire, by the way, that this might have been the biggest first month injury we've ever had. I don't know. I'd have to go through all the seasons. I hadn't researched that, but it definitely knocked a contender out. It's completely changed how Cleveland has to approach the season now. Now it's like 54 wins to get the 1 seed, 53. It's basically like last year, and they might not even care if they get the 1 seed, like they didn't last year. Now it's like we don't have to practice. We'll rest dudes. Let's just get through the season. Let's try Derrick Rose. We'll give him some stuff.
The one place you did want to have home court advantage or not have home court advantage against was the Celtics in the Garden, and now you probably don't have to worry about that. Yeah.
Tantalizing. I think this is a better Celtics team. I really do. I think they had so many more weapons, and the Jalen Tatum upside. I mean, Jalen was a man last night.
He figured it out. He's like, I'm shooting from the corner.
I have a lot of Jalen stock, so I was pleased. But yeah. All right, fantasy football fans, listen up. It's not too late to join the 450,000 people that have already downloaded Draft this season. You get to play in a real live snake draft. You're done in under 5 minutes. They last for just 1 week. Join right now for week 7. Play for cold hard cash. Your chances of winning are 80% better than on the salary cap sites. All new players get a free entry into a real money draft and make your first deposit. You have to use the promo code The Ringer. That's right. Play a real money game for free just by using the promo code The Ringer. And it gets even better. Draft.com is so sure that you'll love it that they're even offering our listeners a money-back guarantee up to $100. Just search Draft in your app store or go to Draft.com. Come play free right now with promo code The Ringer. Before we get to Jeff Bridges, wanted to mention I am on 2 podcasts this week on the Ringer NBA show. Haral Bob and I did a season preview. Haral Bob Valgaris, esteemed gambler. And then on Tuesday, I went on Against All Odds with Cousin Sal and Joe House, and we did a bunch of NBA futures. So if you missed those are available wherever you get your podcast. All right, Jeff Bridges came in. It was a thrill for us. He was the best. We're playing that right now. All right, one of my favorite actors, Jeff Bridges.
Hey, Deb.
What a pleasure.
Great to be here, man.
You're in the tour. You're doing you've only the Brave coming October 20th.
Good movie, yeah.
How you feeling about it?
Really good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I saw it for the second time a couple of nights ago. Went to a big premiere, and it was really wonderful. We were honoring all these firefighters and first responders.
Yeah.
That night they were all there, and also the family of the brave guys who perished in the Yarnell Hill fire.
2013.
Yeah.
And now we're taping this the week of the 10th, and there's all these fires that are going on.
Can you believe it? Oh, man.
California, all this
Yeah.
stuff. So, you read these stories, it just goes like boom. All of a sudden, acres are going in a heartbeat. It's frightening.
I know. I was up in Montana not too long ago. My daughter Jessie was marrying Kevin Rodriguez up there. We had a big family affair in our ranch up in Montana. Fires all over the place.
Jesus.
Man. They're just popping up everywhere.
So you've been making movies now we're midway through decade 5. So you're on the set, you do your scenes, you send it out. Like what's your process after? You're just like, I hope that's good. You're sitting in the screening going, oh, I hope they didn't screw this up.
You never know. You always have high hopes when you sign on in a movie. And often you're lucky enough to have, a great story, a great script, a great director, a great cinematographer, great actors. And the thing comes out crummy. That happens. And every once in a while, you get all those great ingredients, and the thing not only comes out cool, but it transcends all of your expectations, and that's
what was the best example of that?
Well, this is a good example of that.
Really?
Lebowski, I've been lucky. Last Picture Show, Fearless, or something really, Baker Boys, Fabulous Baker Boys.
Fortunately for you, we're going to go through some of these.
Oh, cool.
I do this trick sometimes when I have people who have had great careers. We kind of go through the IMDb because I have a lot of questions because I'm an only child. So I've seen probably every movie you've made, or at least 80% of them. But I love this stuff. And I like when I feel like it's like having a resource in the studio. So Last Picture Show, that was your big break.
Yeah.
Youngest guy ever to get nominated for an Oscar.
Is that right?
I think you were, 22 years old.
Has that record has been?
I think you should brag about that more.
Yeah,
it's almost as impressive as winning the Oscar.
No, I didn't win the.
You didn't win it, but you got nominated. Yeah,
yeah.
Bogdanovich.
I would think there are younger guys than me that have been nominated. Really, to this date,
I think that when you got nominated, you were the youngest person who had ever been nominated.
Yeah.
But then I think the Kramer versus Kramer kid blew you out of the water.
Oh,
he was like 9.
That's there you go. Well, kids, man.
Yeah,
they're
kids
masters.
Shouldn't count.
Well, they're masters. We learn from kids and watch how they do it.
So, Last Picture Show. What do you remember from that all these years later?
Oh man. Well, the cool thing about Picture Show is 20 years later we did the sequel, Texasville.
Yeah.
And we got the same guys, together. Timmy Bottoms and Cloris Leachman, Peter Bogdanovich directed it, and it was such a great group of that original movie. Ben Johnson was no longer with us, but God, what a great actor he was. He was in the original. I think he beat me out for the best, supporting actor.
Yeah.
Deservedly so. He was so terrific in that. But, it was we were all, pretty green at the time. And, wonderful cast. Ellen Burstyn, Eileen Brennan.
When that movie's out that's been out 47 years. Mm-hmm. If it's on, like
Larry McMurtry, man. Great writer.
But you're home, you're flicking channels and it's on. Do you stop and watch 5 minutes of it?
I do. Yeah, I watch a little bit of it, yeah.
Get weird flashbacks?
Yeah, well, that's an aspect of watching my movies I've been in. There's a home movie aspect to it.
Yeah. You're seeing yourself all these different
and you
ages, haircuts.
Yeah, and you remember all of those things. Like your Picture Show, when I see that, I can remember having lunch with Ellen Burstyn and Eileen Brennan and Tim Bottoms, and Sybil Shepherd, and we're sitting there. Peter, that was his second movie. He did a movie called Targets with Boris Karloff shortly before that. And he was very young, I think in his 30s, And he wouldn't let any of us go to the dailies, the stuff we shot.
Dailies, yeah.
Huh?
I would do that if I was a director.
Yeah, he
stay out of my
did.
dailies.
Yeah, and but I remember having lunch with all these young actors, pretty green, and we said something is happening, isn't it? He said, yeah, something feels like you get a feeling, and it turned out to be a special, unique film. I can't think of any movie that it's like, or no movie that's like it. It just kind of sits there by itself.
Such a cool time for movies from 69 through 78. It's just all these young directors coming in, completely changing.
Yeah.
I watched the Spielberg documentary on HBO, and I didn't even realize that there was him and De Palma and Scorsese, and there was 5 or 6 guys, and they all hung out.
Yeah.
And they just talked about movies.
I mentioned Larry McMurtry.
Yeah.
He wrote a series of books based on those characters from The Last Picture Show, and Texasville is one of those books.
Yeah.
And there's 3 more books, so I'm hoping.
But you're ready.
Huh?
You're ready. You're ready for another one.
I don't know. I'm never ready, but.
Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, I saw in the theater. I think I was 5. Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Was that the only time you worked with him?
Yep.
What'd you learn from Clint Eastwood? He was older than you at that point.
Yeah.
Good 15 years older.
Yeah. He's always be older than me. Clint, It was really that was a wonderful experience. I was shot up in Montana, a state that I really fell in love with that state on that.
Oh, that was
movie.
it. You stayed after that.
Yeah, and well, I did a couple more movies after that up there, and I just fell in love with the place. And I can remember it was Michael Cimino's first movie.
Yeah.
Another movie I did up there years later with him was Heaven's Gate.
We're going to talk about that one.
And so, with he's kind of famous for lots of takes and being very extravagant with things. But Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, Clint was giving him his first break as a director. He had written another script for Clint. Was it Magnum Force? I can't remember the other script that Mike had written for him, but Clint was giving him his big shot to direct this thing. And Clint is famous for only wanting to do one or two takes, right?
Right.
So I was the young punk kid who would go up to Cimino and say, "Mike, I've got an idea. Can I just do one more thing?" And he said, "Well, I'll have to ask the boss, Clint would say, "Yeah, give the kid, go on,
him one
go
more.
on, give him another one," And then it was so kind of, ironic that we do the Heaven's Gate, and it's, everything's different.
So Clint scarred him emotionally. Now he went.
No, I don't know. I don't think there's I think there's values. There's a value to both. Short, just a few takes and then doing a bunch.
What's
of
the
takes.
ideal number of takes?
Well, you never know. I always thought it'd be interesting to do a movie where you're only allowed one take.
Oh, that's a one shot. It's like a play.
Just one, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
like
idea.
a one-shot thing. Do you ever see the movie Time Code?
Yeah.
Wasn't that a cool thing where they split the deal in four? I talked to Tony Houston, who was an actor on that, and the way they did that movie is that they would shoot the entire movie twice every day with using 4 cameras.
It's almost like a Broadway musical or something.
Well, it was weird. They would have 4 cameras going all the time, and if an actor in the scene left the room, that camera would follow them, and it would follow the different characters, and it would project on the screen all 4 cameras simultaneously for the audience. So you would follow the people, and then you were led which one to look at, which image to look at by the sound, which one was clear. But that, and then so they shot it, 2 weeks, the whole thing. They shot the movie twice every day. You'd come to work, you'd shoot the movie once, all in real time. Have lunch. While you're having lunch, you're looking at the dailies, and you're saying to your buddy, now when I come around that corner, just wait a little longer because I want to pull out this gun, just for a second, and then you would do it again after lunch. And then you would pick, at the end of the whole process, you pick the one version of that movie that you did that you're going to put up there, and that was it. There's a lot of ways to skin the cat,
Wasn't Tommy Lee Jones legendary for one take too? I thought he was nicknamed like One Take Tommy.
I don't know. Tommy and I did quite a few takes.
I know.
We did Blown Away. Yeah.
So King Kong, 1976. That was like... Here's Jeff Bridges. He's going to be a big star, everybody.
Yeah.
Here's the promotional machine for it.
Yeah.
That was like your big break as an A-lister, right?
I can't remember. I don't know. I wouldn't.
Because the
label it
Hollywood
that way.
machine, when your career's kind of going this way, there's always that one movie where they're like, this guy.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Was that it?
And they just
let me
blow
see.
it out.
You got my thing there? Let me
Yeah.
see. Let me just look at the.
I picked some favorites.
Yeah, I gotta get this back.
So you had 76 was King Kong.
What was before that?
Thunderbolt and Lightfoot I had was like the, because that was a big movie in 74.
Yeah, well, Clint, Clint's so huge.
By the way, your IMDb is like 7 times as long as
Oh,
this.
yeah,
I just
yeah. No, I'm
cherry-picked
just seeing
some.
what was before. Oh, yeah. Well, Last Picture Show, that was big for me.
Yeah.
But Kong, that was a wild experience, man. I think that we worked on that for 9 months, I think.
My God.
Giving birth to the monkey.
And it was successful, right? It was like one of the first big budget movies.
I think sort of. I mean, who really was incredible, and it was Jessie Lange.
Yeah.
Jessica Lange. I thought Jessica Lange and Charles Grodin really hit the tone of the movie. You know, tone in movies is so important that everybody's kind of in the same world, you know, and I felt that one was a little uneven tonally, you know, so you didn't know, you know, take it seriously, tongue in the cheek. But Jessie, you know, I don't know, she was so great in it. And
that's when people are like, wow, that's a movie star. Jessica Lange, beautiful.
I remember a couple of stories that pop into my head. We shot it, you know, the monkey didn't fall off the Empire State Building like the original. It fell off the trade towers,
right.
You know, and they were still there. And we're showing up for the big scene with them, you know, the monkey's on the ground. He's just fallen. And, you know, we're just come to work. And this little guy comes up to me. He goes, "Do you like my temple? My temple?" I say, "Your temple?" He says, "Yeah, my temple. I live over there. I come here. I praise the Lord. I walk in your temple." He says, "Yes, I'm Philippe Petit." I say, "Oh, you're the guy who walked across?" He says, "Yes, I'm a friend of Jessica Lange. We used to perform together in Paris." And I walk across. It happened just, you know, I think the year before, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
And he says, "Do you juggle?" And I say, "No." And he taught me how to juggle in about 5 minutes. And then for the rest of my stay there in New York, I would watch him. You'd see him on the street. You'd be walking down, you know, doing your business. You'd look down the street and you say, "What is there? Am I seeing things? Is there a guy on a unicycle holding onto a taxi cab coming down the street?" And you say, "It is." And it would be Philippe Petit. And he would come out and he had a big rope on his shoulder. And he would be like, you know, he wouldn't speak at all, you know, like kind of like a mime kind of thing, you know, but he would get some strong guys together and he'd tie the rope onto a lamppost or something, get these guys to pull on it, and he would leap up there on that rope and he would perform. This is what he was sentenced to do. You know, The judge, you know, because he was found guilty for breaking the law, and they said, "We sentence you to perform free for a year in the park," or something like that. And so he'd get these guys to pull on the rope, and he'd jump up there and perform. And then after he, you know, a couple of minutes, you know, 10 minutes, he'd jump off, get everybody lined up facing each other, curl the rope up on his shoulder, and take his hat, you know, tip his hat and time it perfectly, go right down the line, waving to all the people, and catch a cab and on the side of the cab and take off again.
Wow.
Magical.
King Kong.
Yeah.
Special effects have not aged well for King Kong. In case you
No,
haven't.
exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
1976 was rough.
I've been a I've been a fan of King Kong. I used to pretend to be sick to stay home from school to watch it on the original. You know?
Oh yeah.
But they've really getting that monkey down now, man. Wow, I've seen the last two. They're really looking good.
Planet of the Apes is another
ours
one.
was just terrible. You know, we had who is that famous?
Yours looked like a
Stone
doll on a
guy, huh?
string on the top of a fake
well,
building.
it was so. They had, you know, who's the great stunt guy? I can't remember his name. In the suit, the gorilla suit.
Yeah.
They had that version, and then they had a giant 70-foot, you know, stiff as hell, you know,
Yeah.
a version like this. I remember the scene where Jessica is sitting in the palm of the monkey's hand, you know. And they made a terrible mistake. They made two left hands. You know, they
What?
didn't. Yeah. So that pissed, you know, the director off, who was quite a volatile cat. And so the scene is Jessie's in the monkey's hand, and the monkey's supposed to, you know, gently kind of be caressing her with her fingers or whatever. And there's the monkey's hand was made in Italy, and so there was an Italian guy assigned to each finger, right, to manipulate the finger.
Oh, my
Of
God.
course, the director didn't speak Italian, and the guys on the fingers didn't speak English, so there had to be an interpreter between the two, you know. And that didn't work well at all. It was too much lag time. So the director just raised his hand. He says, "Just look at my blimmin' hand. Just watch my hand," you know. And so you got these Italian guys working the fingers, looking at the guy's hand, and they practically killed Jessie. And they, you know, "Oh you're hurting me. No.
Oh, my
God. Oh, there's so many wild stories from that movie.
Jesus. 1980, Heaven's Gate. You mentioned it.
Yeah.
Which has now the reputation as one of the most expensive, biggest bombs and all that stuff. Did you?
Yeah, but
when you're on the set, do you
I thought you
realize
were
that?
going to go another place.
Where?
Now it's considered a classic.
It's kind of it's
a
had
masterpiece.
Kind of
It's
had a come around.
Yeah, but when it came out, there was so much animosity for our director, not Clint Eastwood, Michael Cimino.
Yeah.
That they just killed it with the reviews. And I have my theories about what happened. I think.
Let's hear it.
Well, we were. It was a time when MTV was just coming out, and fast editing, and the digital editing was just coming in, and people were getting used to that speed. And Heaven's Gate was very slow, kind of almost like the Russian director Tarkovsky. He would just sits, and
Deer Hunter's like that too.
Yeah, and
First
Deer
hour,
Hunter's
Deer
like
Hunter's
that.
super slow.
Yeah, and you've got to get with the filmmaker's rhythm and not try to, it's like going to a dance and they're playing a waltz and you say, no, I want a cha-cha, man.
Yeah,
I'm cha-chaing. No, it's a waltz. Dig the waltz. You got to get with the guy's rhythm. So I think that was one thing. And then the other deal is that Cimino, he was the darling after Deer Hunter.
Yes.
Of Hollywood. And, everybody said, oh, whatever you want to do, Mr. Cimino. He said, well, I want to make this epic Western story. And it's an amazing story about, back in those days, in the 18, what is it, 70, probably something like that, mid-1860s. There was just a handful of men, cattle barons, who owned all the cattle from Texas to Canada. And it was at the same time when immigrants were coming into our country, splashing on our shores, and they'd get out to Montana and Wyoming, and it'd be freezing, and there are all these hamburgers walking around, cows walking around, and they're starving, so they started to eat these cows, and the cattlemen said, oh, no, you can't do that. We're going to hire 100 Texas gunmen to come in there and kill all the people, the immigrants who were doing that. And they wrote an official paper that was signed by the President of the United States, authorizing the whole deal. That's that's one element of the story. Have you ever seen the movie?
I saw it when I was in high school.
It's really a classic.
It's been 30 years.
Really incredible.
It's long. I mean, it'll be on TV sometimes, and it'll be like the channel guide block is just Heaven's Gate for 4 hours.
Yeah. But it's really worth it. But you gotta get with the guys' speed. Just one other thing about Heaven's Gate. We were shooting a scene where I'm killed out in front with Isabelle Huppert and is Walken killed out there. I think it might be two in front of this cabin. And we just were finishing that scene. And Mike gathered the crew around in the cast, and he said, the owner of this land is going to burn this cabin down because he doesn't want it on his land anymore. Does anybody want it? And I raised my hand. And I said, yeah, I'll take that cabin. And because I had bought a ranch in Montana, a few hundred miles south. And it was the hog ranch, which was the whorehouse from Heaven's Gate, and a beautiful barn. And I numbered those logs and moved it down to my place, and that's where I live in Montana, in the whorehouse from Heaven's Gate.
Heaven's Gate kept giving.
yeah, man.
I'm going to skip over Tron unless you want to. If there's anything,
I got
I know
stories
we're a little pressed for time.
Okay, you do. It's your show. You do what you like.
Tron, though, I was a video game kid.
Oh.
I was excited for Tron. I saw it in the theater first weekend.
Yeah.
And then it had a belated resurgence. The original, 82.
Yeah.
And then it had a belated. It didn't do well, and then it was a little like Heaven's Gate, where people kind of came around on it. All of a sudden, it has a sequel.
Kitschy and weird, and
I mean, it definitely feels very early 80s.
Doesn't it? Oh, yeah, man. And that music, Wendy Carlos, that music is so great.
So Saturday Night Live, 1983, you hosted with your bro.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that?
I remember being in a room with all the writers, And, Bo and I, we jammed and had some great ideas what we wanted to do. And being in the room pitching those ideas, and we're laughing and our faces are all animated, and the guys just have this
They're staring you
These
down.
implacable expressions with nothing. It's the weirdest feeling, man. You're pitching something and it's just nothing. But Bo and I had a great time, and my father was in it too. I think I think you can Google it. You can Google
All Three Bridges.
You can Google, Bo and Jeff Bridges Saturday Night Live, and you can see this scene that Bo and I did with my dad. A big fight that we do. And we had a great.
Was Eddie Murphy on that? Had he left by then,
I think
or was
Eddie
he still
Murphy
there?
might have been there.
Yeah.
And then Bo and I had this trip where a skit where I'm playing a gay masseuse. What was my name? My name was Sandra, and I'm preparing for a massage, and the door, my door knocks, and I open up, and he says, and Bo is there, and he says, I've come for my massage. I'm looking for Sandra. And I say, I am Sandra. Please come in, please. And I get him down there on the bed, and I'm oiling my body first before I and I put oil all over him, and then I basically molest him on the table. And I couldn't resist, knowing that it was live TV. I couldn't resist pulling down my brother's pants at the end of the thing, is the coup de grace, and exposed him.
Was he mad?
And no, I mean, it was a payback for teasing me all those years. He was 8 years older than me, and the guys came down. What do you call it? The guys who don't allow you to swear or whatever. And
the FCC. They're probably upset.
They say, we were going to cut this, but we figured you boys were brothers. And that didn't make any sense. Like, incest was okay, but it was bizarre. But we had a good time.
We should mention your dad, who, because I was younger, for me, he was the Airplane. I picked the wrong time to stop sniffing glue guy. Like, for the young generation, Airplane was such a big movie in 1980.
Yeah.
That he was like, oh, that guy. Wait, he was in other movies? Like, I had no idea. I was a kid.
Well, he
had a phenomenal career.
He was got very famous in the 60s for a TV show called Sea Hunt.
Yeah.
Where he played a skin diver. But before that, he was in High Noon with, Gary Cooper, did a bunch of movies before that. But he had such great success with Sea Hunt that it was kind of the ultimate compliment. They thought he was a skin diver. That's how well he pulled it off. And that was, great and wonderfully financial, wonderful. We got a lot of money for our family. We moved to a bigger house and everything. Yeah. But it was disappointing to him in a way, because he's such a versatile actor. And from that time on, he kept getting all of these scripts for skin divers.
I didn't even know there were that many scripts for skin divers.
All these, skin divers, he turned them down, because, he had developed this strong persona, and that's what, people wanted him to, duplicate, what it was. And then he did, Airplane and kind of show. I remember I did a movie with him called Blown Away.
Yes.
And
in Boston,
and I talked to the producer when we were starting out. I said, who would be a great actor to play my uncle would be Lloyd Bridges. Have you heard of him? And he says, he laughed and he said, your dad's great. He says, but he's really more of a comic. I said, what are you talking about, man? He says, with Airplane and stuff, and I think people will, I say, oh, shit. You can make him read for the part? And he said, would he read for the part? I say, oh, man.
Oh, my God.
So he came in and he read, and he, of course, knocked it out of the park, and he was my uncle in that movie.
Against All Odds, 1984. You play, I don't think you really did a traditional sports movie. This is the closest you did, because you're a receiver on the Dolphins. By the way, a very convincing receiver, because I like this movie. I've watched it a couple times. You're convincing. It looked like you had actually studied the pass routes. I did.
I'm trying to think of the guy that I studied.
Looked like you'd had some training.
Yeah, there was a great guy in the.
You were like a young Wes Welker.
Outlaw.
Old Wes Welker.
Yeah, he was. I can't remember. Chandler. Bob Chandler. That was the guy.
Bob Chandler from the Bills.
Yeah.
OJ's friend.
Yeah, probably so. Was he in the Bills? I thought he was in the Outlaw. Or I thought
he was originally in the Bills.
The Raiders
yeah.
or something. Anyway, this guy, I remember I had dinner with him or something, and he was like basically like a crippled guy. He couldn't sit down. He was like this, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm going to play one more season." I say, "What?
You can't walk."
He says, "You can't walk." He says, "Oh yeah, I know, but I can still do it." I say, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Yeah, I show up, 3 or 4 hours before the game, and they shoot me up with a bunch of stuff." And I said, "Well, why are you going to do that?" He says, "Catching that long ball, nothing like it, man. Nothing gets you that."
Oh, that's awesome.
He says, He says, I have to do everything I can to stop myself from just weeping after I catch that ball from ecstasy. He's just, and so that was an interesting movie.
Against All Odds played the Phil Collins song. That was like that era when they started promoting with the song.
I was so upset with that. They didn't let him sing it on the Academy Awards for some reason.
Why?
Did it win the Academy Award? I think.
Probably.
I don't know,
At least was nominated.
Yeah.
And then it also, if anyone's ever watched it on cable, phenomenal car chase scene near the beginning. You and James Woods are having this 7-minute car chase. It's really
that was right
great.
by my mother's house on Sunset.
You weren't driving it, right?
Oh, yes, I was driving. Oh, man.
Oh, my God.
Oh, me and Jimmy Woods, we were driving that thing, and
you were really doing the actual
Oh, yeah, completely. Everything. We were and we had the traffic all blocked up going east, going into town.
Yeah.
But there were, a lot of traffic going to the beach.
Yeah,
going the other way. And we'd be driving along, and somebody, driving to the beach would say, I don't think this traffic. I'm just going to hang a Yui, and would come right into the shot sometimes. And,
that's a good one.
There's that's based on a movie called Out of the Past. That was really an incredible movie.
We're going to take a quick break to talk about Gillette. I keep telling you this, the tip of a Gillette razor blade is measured on an atomic scale. That means their blade edges are thinner than a single brain cell. Tate, are you shaving yet? You shave?
I do, once every 2 days or something like that.
Are you going to have the Steph Curry thing where all of a sudden you come in, you have a Fu Manchu?
I identify with Steph Curry because we have the same facial. We have a baby face and the facial hair just hadn't quite come in yet. Once I start taking steroids, you'll start seeing the scraggly beard.
Steph Curry might take that the wrong way. Steph Curry is 26. All of a sudden could turn the peach fuzz into a goatee. So you're how old are you now?
I'm right there. Yeah, I'm right there.
All right, there you go. All of a sudden you might have this full beard going.
Looking at you, Nike.
Hey, listen, the Gillette research and development team has spent a lot of time making your shave closer and more comfortable. Over 1,000 craftsmen and women in Boston busy making your blades. Fail one of their tests, and the blades will not leave the factory. They never stop working to make your blades better. Now, that includes the price tag. You can get Gillette blades at their lowest prices in years. See for yourself at GilletteOnDemand.com. Gillette, the best a man can get. Pricing applies to select products and is at the sole discretion of the retailer. And while we're here, from a gambling standpoint, we are going to remember the 2010s as the decade when live betting took off. Where you're betting at is just as important as who you're betting on. So here's an idea. Go to mybookie.ag. They've been in the business for years. Their reputation rock solid. They do 100% cash bonuses. Off the bat, you're making money for practically doing nothing. And they have the fastest payout. Seriously, just 2 business days. They have in-game live betting, the most rewarding player perks in the business, and an all-new mobile site that makes wagering on the go a breeze. Lay down some cash. Try to win big today. Join now, and MyBookie will match your deposit with up to a 100% bonus. Just visit mybookie.ag. Use the promo code Bill Simmons to activate the offer. You play, you win, you get paid at mybookie.ag. All right, we're going back to the one and only Jeff Bridges. Starman, not only a great movie, it actually should be a Netflix series. I think they bring Starman back. I think I want to spend 12 episodes with Starman.
They did that. They did that after the movie came out.
Oh, they did it on network TV, right?
Yeah.
I need the Netflix 12-hour.
I know. It
12
could be
episodes.
Very good.
It was such a great idea.
And it's all set up. I gave she's pregnant, and I gave her one of those silver balls, and it's all set up for something.
Did you keep any of the silver balls or no?
I did. I got some silver balls.
Got 3 left.
Yeah, had an operation, put them in there. Yeah, and I heard that they're going to make they're going to do another version of it, and I thought, well, God, it was, too bad they didn't make a.
I don't like remakes.
Yeah, too bad they didn't make a. Yeah, too bad they didn't make.
Because my thing with remakes is if I can watch the movie and it's still really good, like if I can watch it with my 12-year-old daughter, be like, watch this movie, this is a good one, and it holds up, don't remake it.
But I'll tell you what, where I disagree with you, man.
Okay.
True Grit.
Well, but True Grit is...
It's a total remake, man.
But that was too dated, though. It was
What
like
do you
from
mean?
55 years ago.
You said, I'm just right. Am I right? Yeah.
I was ready for the True Grit remake.
Yeah,
50
and
years
especially
is...
for your 12-year-old girl. I mean, you got Haley Seinfeld in there, who's so great
She's
in the movie.
a big fan of hers.
So show her True Grit, man.
By the way, I don't know if you saw her in Edge of 17, but she's a really good actress.
No, I know she's good.
She's going places.
Oh, yeah, she's great. Singer and everything.
Jagged Edge during this mid-'80s era of, it's like this thriller era. Do I trust Person X? Is he really the killer? Is he not? It's a good one. You and Glenn Close. You turn out to be the killer.
That's right.
I don't. Spoiler alert. 32 years later.
Yeah.
Was that the first time you were the killer in a movie?
I think I killed some people in Heaven's Gate,
But you weren't like a murderer.
No, I wasn't a murderer. Was that my first murder? I don't know. Maybe.
You just went full murder in this one.
There was a guy, we're doing Heaven's Gate. I told you being shot in front of that cabin, right?
Yeah.
And Cimino's famous for many, many takes. So I had 16 suits made with 100 squibs in the suit.
Oh, my God.
100 shots, explosions with blood bags all done. They had 16 of them. And we went through those suits 3 times. They reloaded them, and we did that scene.
Does that hurt?
That many times. Hurt.
Feels like little
Well, no, here's the
what?
thing. It was in the days, it was a little kind of primitive how they did that thing, and they had to do those shots, there was a board with wires attached to these nails, and I would run a nail across it, and it would set off all these shots on your body. And I was talking to the guy who was doing that, and I said, now, you're going to shoot me once in the shoulder. I'm going to reach for my shoulder holster, a pistol in my shoulder holster. Let me get that out. I'll get a couple of when I get 1, 2 shots out, and now let it go, right? So the first take, boom, I get shot in the shoulder. I go for my shoulder holster, and before I get the gun out of the thing, boom, and he sets one off right under my arm. And I said, "Oh, I've actually been shot. My arm, I'm bleeding now. And then boom, 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 and I fall down. And I said, "Well, I've been shot in the arm. I'll just lay here and die on screen, bleed out." And I wasn't dead, but I looked at my arm, the huge bruise on my arm and I go over to the guy, I say, "Let me get my gun out before you set the things off." And he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
My bad."
Every time, man.
He screwed up.
Every time.
Maybe he didn't like you.
Boom, 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 like this, It was just so sad. Now we're doing, this is many years later, and we're doing Jagged Edge. And my stand-in, Lloyd Catlett, who's been my stand-in through about 70 movies. I met him on the Last Picture Show. And
He's
been
like
my
your permanent stand-in?
Yeah, he's been my
that's
stand-in
phenomenal.
all this time. And he says, and at the end of Jagged Edge, when I'm going to go come in and kill Glenn Close. I'm going to pull out my knife, and then she's going to shoot me, And he says, "Look who's the special effects guy who's going to pull the trigger on your thing." And it was this guy. It was that same guy, man. And I go, "Oh, no." So I go over to him, and, Heaven's Gate was, 15 years before or whatever. And I say, Bobby or whatever his name is, I say, "Wait till I get my knife out, man.
Yeah.
Before you shoot me, And he goes, "Oh, yeah, sorry about that." Boom! Right under my arm.
Oh,
the same place. And I took that knife and I threw it down on the ground, and it magically flipped up in the air and landed right by the guy's head, Oh, I could never figure out if he was doing that on purpose, Did I insult him some way? I don't know.
We got to skip over some 80s thrillers
skip.
and go to.
I'm telling too long a story.
No, this is exactly what I was hoping for. 1989. My favorite Jeff Bridges movie, The Fabulous Baker Boys.
Oh gosh.
There's so much. You know what's cool about this movie? It's almost been 30 years. It's still 100% rewatchable.
Yeah.
It feels like it could kind of come out now. It's not that much different.
Yeah.
Pfeiffer at like the perfect point of her career.
Man.
You're at the perfect point of your career.
You
got all this stuff with your brother.
Man.
I never knew like why, because I didn't know that much about the history of you and your brother. Like how much of this is kind of tapping into real stuff versus not real.
Yeah.
And her and the piano. It's just I'm a huge Pfeiffer fan.
And then you had this great director, Steve Kloves.
Yeah.
He wrote that in his 20s, man, and directed it. I think he was still in his 20s.
It's a fucking awesome
That's
movie.
his first movie. That's his first time out,
Wow. So what do you remember about that one?
There's
you
so
could
many
play the
great
piano,
movies.
right? Like you would from years ago. You knew how to do it.
Well, a little bit, but not like that guy,
Yeah, right.
Dave Grusin is who you're hearing play the piano. But I told Steve, our director, I said, look, we can pull the illusion, because movies is all about illusion. And he's like, we got to pull the illusion that I play. We just do it 1 or 2 times, and that'll be it. So I set up some video cameras when Dave was doing the score, one kind of far back so I could see his body movements and the general position of his hand, another one right over the keyboard to really look at his hands. And then I asked Steve to give me the bars of music where they're going to go from my hands to my face or vice versa. And I learned those bars. I could play those bars, and I could play a little. I could play enough to learn those bars, and so I, learned them. And then when we shot it, I had a little earwig, a little speaker that you put in your ear, so I could hear what Dave was playing. We muted my piano, but I'm actually playing the keys that you're hearing, and so the illusion worked pretty well.
Yeah, usually when people play piano in the movies, they're trying too hard. They're throwing their whole body into it, and the ones that actually work are the ones, because real people who don't play the piano don't do that. Like they're cool about it.
Yeah,
that movie has a nice vibe. It's a really interesting rewatch too, because of you could tell she was a little nervous about singing in real life, and it translated into the role, and it just
was a song. You get the soundtrack, and they left out my favorite song that she sang. Was More Than You Know. Do you know that song?
Yeah.
It was the song that she, she auditions for the brothers.
Yeah.
More Than You Know. So beautiful.
And that wasn't in the soundtrack?
And that's not in the soundtrack. I don't know why.
Wow. Fisher King, you worked with Robin Williams.
Yeah. Gosh.
Everybody loves him. Or everybody loves working
Such
with
an
him.
incredible cat. I was nervous doing that one because he was, he's such an amazing comedian.
Yeah.
And I had some serious stuff I had to do in that movie. I had one monologue I had to give to him, his character in a coma. His character was, completely unconscious. But I had this fear that Robin would be, screwing with me, all during my big, serious monologue, trying to break me up. And the antithesis of that actually happened. He was so supportive, and it's odd. How can somebody be supportive if their eyes are closed and they're not moving? But somehow, just the vibe, he was so supportive in that scene, and it made me understand that comedy was just a tool in his kit bag. He was a masterful actor, Didn't you dig him in when he played? He had a series of about 3 movies he came out where he played the bad guy. You know about that?
Yeah, well, Insomnia, he was really good in that one.
Yeah, so good.
Was this right around the time when you felt like you could do any movie you wanted? Because after Baker Boys, where the choices you were being offered were at a different level, or did that happen earlier? Because there had to be some point where you're like, I'm Jeff Bridges, I want to do this role. And they'd be like, oh, cool, Jeff Bridges wants to do it.
Well, it's never been like that.
No?
No,
There must have been a point where you had more power than you used to have with... or maybe you didn't think of it that way.
I never thought of it that way. I try to resist making movies as much as I can. I'm not going out and trying to... I've done it a couple of times, movies that I produced, that I really have been proud of and, worked hard at getting made. But normally I do my best to not engaged in making movies because I know what it takes. For one thing, you're away from your family.
Right.
That's one of my regrets in my life, that I missed a lot of my kids growing up, and that's I can get depressed about that. You do one movie, then you're not going to be able to do some other movie that might be coming down the pike that you're not even aware of.
You're committed.
And, you're committed. Yeah. And I got a lot of other stuff. Music and paint, and I got a lot of other stuff. So I really try hard not to engage. And so I end up doing movies that I just can't resist. There's just a story that's so cool, or a movie that I'd love to see, or some other artist it's just too great, and that will suck
you never
me.
had your run where you're like, I'm going to do a Bourne Identity trilogy.
Yeah.
Just bang out movies in Amsterdam. This one's going to shock you. I love The Vanishing, which I'm sure you get, but it's like one of the all-time cult thriller movies.
But have you seen the original?
Well, that's the thing. It always gets compared to the original. It's like, can I just like the one with Jeff Bridges and Kiefer Sutherland?
The original's better, man.
You think so?
Oh man, yeah. Yeah, for a lot of reasons, but it's what's interesting, directed by the same guy.
Did you?
George Schleiser, and he wanted, in the American version, he wanted my guy, the bad guy, to get his comeuppance.
Barney.
But in the
Hello, Jeff.
Yes, yeah, Barney.
You had that
yes,
weird
yes,
accent.
Yes, and
you talk very deliberately.
Well, that was one of the things that George Schleiser said to me. He said, "Jeff, I am the real Barney, Jeff."
Oh, so you're doing a George Schleiser impersonation?
Totally. So I just said, "Thank you, George."
Okay.
And so I just ripped.
I'm going to talk like this.
Yeah, and then when his first bit of direction for me, he says, "Jeff, I want you to write an essay on Barney's past, his life."
An essay?
An essay. And I said, "Oh, George." I said, "Okay." I said, "It's like a homework assignment or something." But I started to do it, and it just started to flow out of me, and it was a great exercise. I can recommend it to other actors, and I've done it for other parts. What you do, and you almost do it like I was at the time I was working on a book called The Artist's Way. Have you heard? Do you know about that?
I've heard of it. I didn't read it.
One of the things in Artist's Way is these morning pages where you write stream of consciousness, which means you don't stop writing. So if your mind is saying, "I don't know what I'm going to write," you say, "I don't know what I'm going to write. I don't know what I'm going to write. I know I'm not supposed to stop moving my hands, so I'm going to keep writing. I don't know what
It's like
write."
writing improv.
I think, yeah. And and what happens is that your mind starts to just spill on the page, rather than trying to figure out something precious or pertinent or
Well, The Vanishing's a good movie.
So you just let it flow, and so I'm writing this. I said, how am I going to, how the word? And it turns out that the accent was a total affectation. That the guy was from the valley, here, and we don't have enough time to tell you what the backstory of Barney is, but it was quite remarkable. But the accent was a total affectation.
Well, it's on cable all the time, which means people like it.
Check out the original.
Anytime it's always on. I don't think you like the original more. Blown Away Boston. I was living in Boston when you filmed this movie. It was a huge deal.
We got in trouble, man. We blew out a bunch of windows and.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
There's some, as somebody who spent a lot of my life in Boston, there's some continuity issues with the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You're just going downhill for 9 blocks. There's like no point in Boston. They cheated the location.
All of a sudden it's San Francisco.
Yeah. And you see an explosion from the Four Seasons, and there's no way to see. But I still, it's an important Boston movie because I think it was like the first, hey, this is in Boston.
Yeah.
They're making it here. Jeff Bridges is here. He's staying in a hotel here. And it was like a big deal.
To me, it was so great because I got to work with my dad. And also Tommy Lee, who's one of my favorite actors. It was great.
It's a good one. It's on a lot. We got to go Lebowski, which you've talked about a cajillion times. And then there's this whole crazy Lebowski fan base and this became like an alter ego for you, the dude.
Man, yeah. Got the Lebowski fests,
And you've embraced it.
Absolutely. Oh, God,
Yeah.
I'm proud of being involved with that one. That's a great movie.
Did you know that at the time? You're filming it?
I knew that, I was a big fan of the Coen brothers. So I knew that we were in good hands. But this was a case if I had high expectations, and then when the thing came out, those expectations were,
You just went nuts.
transcended. It was just much better than I thought. I had high hopes, and it was better than I ever thought. I mean, that's a great, that you're talking about seeing movies of mine on TV. Now that movie will come on. I'll say, well, I'll just watch. I'll watch a couple of scenes. Wait till Turturro licks the ball, and then I'll spin to another channel. And he'll lick that thing, and I say, oh, I gotta hang in. I gotta see this, and then I'll stick with that whole movie because the scenes are like popcorn. You can't stop, man. And the more you see it, the more you get out of it, and
I'm
it's just a
fascinated by the
well-made movie.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the tale of it because usually with comedies they belong to like a certain generation, right? Like my generation loves Caddyshack, but I'm not sure under 25 if they care about Caddyshack that way. Big Lebowski is just like people hit 17, 18, 19, whatever, and they get sucked in, and that's it. It just keeps going and going.
My theory is that it's just a great. It's such a great movie, well-made movie. Where each scene leads to something else that's surprising. Roger Deakins, the cinematographer, it's so beautifully shot, and like most things, not most things, like I said, some things and things that I really admire that are really well done. It's not in the beauty of it's not in your face. It's like it looks effortless,
Well, we're almost out of time, so I got to fast forward.
Okay.
I got to do two more. The Contender. You're up there in conversation for greatest movie presidents. Like if I was like, could I take a movie president and actually have them run the real country? Mm-hmm. If I did a bracket, I think my final championship game would be you versus Kevin Kline and Dave.
Oh, right.
I think, good. I don't know if anyone else has any other candidates,
good
but
idea.
You were just a good president. You felt like the president.
Yeah.
Did you know that was going to be? I mean, that was an important movie. You got nominated for it. I think Joan Allen did too.
Yeah. Rod Lurie wrote and directed that movie. And he was a very interesting guy. He was a
kind of a polarizing guy.
Well, he was I don't know if you call him a critic. I guess you call him a critic, but he was more like Truffaut or Bogdanovich, who both were film historians. Gave film critics, but they only wrote about movies that they really liked, basically, and they gave the viewers more insight into it. And Rod, he would interview filmmakers for the reason that he wanted to be a filmmaker himself. So he would always ask very pertinent questions. And it turns out that I was his first interview that he ever did. Isn't that bizarre? Wow. And if I ran into other interviewers, I said, "You know Rod Lurie?" And their eyes would roll. I said, "Why do you?" I said, "Oh, he was always asking these, questions, just how a camera moves and stuff." But anyway, he wrote this great script, and he was really into politics, really knew about Washington. And then Joan Allen was going to play.
And she's incredible.
She's incredible. Yeah. And I had worked with her in Tucker years before.
Yeah, another good one.
And so I thought, oh, man, this is going to be a good one. And then Rod loved the fact, because I had just played, the dude, maybe a couple of years before. He says, I love the fact the dude's going to be the president, I love that. And that really played into my whole thing during that, especially that time of my career, taking a cue from my father. I didn't want to develop too strong a persona in any kind of thing. Yeah. So doing the dude and then doing the prez, that was a nice juxtaposition. I enjoyed that.
I would say that's your best characteristic as an actor is the versatility. After all these years, you just sit back and be like,
thank you.
You're the vanishing guy, you're the president, you're the dude. Like you're able to move all these different places. Yeah. So you finally win the Oscar, Crazy Art, 2009. And you've been in the business at this point. I mean, since you were a kid.
Yeah.
But you'd been making movies for almost 40 years at that point. Was it everything you hoped it was going to be?
It was another one of those transcendent things, where I thought it was going to be good and it turned out better than I imagined.
So you weren't thinking when you did that script, this is the one I'm going to win the Oscar for this?
No. When I turned that script down for about 2 years.
Yeah.
Because there was no music attached.
Yeah.
And in my heart, I always wanted to make a movie, about a musician, and do that because that's something I love playing music, and it would be, wonderful. But in a way, it's things are safe when you keep them in the dream world. You're not gonna. There's no danger of failure or anything because you're just dreaming, you're just thinking. But now when it starts to come real, it's kind of frightening because we were talking about that wide receiver with that ball. And when you're throwing that perfect pass, man, all your dreams could come true. Please, God, let me catch this thing. Whatever my sweaty hands slip this thing. Oh, man. A lot of anxiety, flop sweat and stuff. And so I was kind of relieved when there was no music in the script. I said, wow, I was close. I can keep it and just dreaming about it. And then I'm walking down the street one day and I see my buddy T-Bone Burnett, when we met on Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
And he says, what do you think about this script, Crazy Heart? I said, oh, I don't know. There's no music, And he says, oh, that's the easy part. I said, why are you interested in doing it? He said, well, I'll do it if you'll do it. I said, you're kidding me. And he says, yeah. I said, what about the music? He says, we're gonna handle that. I said, okay. So off we went, and we, wrote those songs, and I could tell you lots of stories about it, it was just it was such a wonderful experience working with my dear friends.
Yeah.
And, making that movie. It was Scott Cooper's first movie. He wrote the script, and now he's, become a big-time director. He's got a movie coming out now called Hostiles. That's supposed to be terrific. I haven't seen it yet.
So last question, you've worked with so many people over the years. I know actors hate this question, but who do you think's the best actor or actress you ever worked with? Was there anybody where you were like, wow, that person's so talented?
I tell you, this movie that's coming out, Only the Brave, has got some good performances in it, man. Jennifer Connelly, woo! Josh Brolin, incredible. Miles Teller, so great. Wonderful, Taylor Kitsch is in it. It's just great actors. I can't name one. No, I get knocked out by people's performances. Have you dug Bloodline?
Yeah, the Netflix show?
Yeah. Bo's in that. My brother's in that. There's a slew of good actors in that, man. I'm watching that stuff, huh? Aren't they good? Oh, man.
You might have to. It sounds like you want to do one Netflix show at some point.
Well, or like some great, some great stuff is on there now. It's kind of all switched around.
All right, hey, people out there, Jeff Bridges is ready. He's ready to read an awesome script.
Oh man, yeah.
This was really fun.
All right.
If this had been 4 hours, I think we could have done it.
Yeah, I think
but you're
so,
busy.
man.
You're promoting stuff.
Too many stories, man.
It was awesome.
A long-winded motherfucker.
It was awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bill. Good hanging there.
Thanks again to Jeff Bridges. Thanks to Tate Frazier. Thanks to SeatGeek for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase on NFL tickets. Use promo code BSNFL. And for $30 off your first SeatGeek purchase on NBA tickets, use promo code NBAPalooza. Thanks to Gillette. A Gillette razor blade thinner than a single brain cell. That's the product of many brain cells at work from the thousands of men and women at Gillette. They are always working harder to make your shave better. 2 years from now, they'll be working harder to make Tate's shave better. Now you can get Gillette blades for less at GilletteOnDemand.com. Gillette, the best a man can get. Pricing applies to select products at the sole discretion of the retailer. Thanks to Sonos. Their play-based adds dynamic, pulse-pounding sound to whatever's playing on your TV, streams music, and practically disappears beneath your TV for a limited time only. Sonos is offering listeners of this podcast 10% off one order of $2,500 or less for any product on Sonos.com. This offer cannot be combined with other discounts or promotions. Use promo code Simmons10, Simmons10 at Sonos.com to receive this exclusive offer. Hope to see some people at the at Lager tonight for the Rewatchables Face Off podcast. We're back on Friday with somebody we have never had on this podcast and who had never done a podcast. It's a good one. And if more NBA stuff happens, I'm gonna hop over to the Ringer NBA show on Thursday or Friday and chime in. So if you haven't subscribed to Ringer NBA show, I would do so. And by the way, the Ringer NFL show has been fantastic. Not just TM Street with Tate and Lombardi, which has gone to another level, but I listened to Mays and Clark yesterday on they're on Tuesdays and Fridays. And it's just a great football podcast. I'm really proud of the Ringer NFL show. I think that feed has become indispensable. So check it out. That's it. Back on Friday.